What's up, everyone? It's Esther and Zoe here, and welcome to Vision and Alchemy. Whether you're new to the path of self-discovery or you've been on this journey for a while, Esther and I are here to support and inspire you every step of the way. Buckle up, my friends, because we're about to embark on the adventure of a lifetime. Vision and Alchemy starts now.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 2. We've literally, Esther and I have already been chatting and we just pressed record, so we might edit this out and we might keep it, but we were like, fuck it, this is actually kind of gold.
Yeah, I love it.
Because what isn't what we say gold?
Right, that's why we're here, baby.
But I was just saying to Esther, yesterday at the end of our episode, we randomly did, what do we do? Like spoke about for a few minutes something we've learnt this week or we valued that we learnt this week. And I was like, maybe we should make that a thing, like at the end of every episode.
Yeah.
Just give each other a little like.
That's what popped into my head. I was like, we should just wrap it with this. It'd be cute.
Yeah. Exactly. It's just like that little nugget of gold. And anyone that's kind of like wafted off in the episode with all of our tangents, we'll bring them back at the end.
Wafted off.
They're like, oh, fuck, they've stopped talking. Oh, thank God. Like, yeah.
I love that.
And we're like, and that's why we think this. And you're like, oh, sure. Yeah. So maybe we can, if we can remember, give it a try. And then at the end, it's just like these little nuggets of information. Because I think both of what we said yesterday was really valuable.
Yeah.
And
cute.
We're always like, as we mentioned in the first episode, we're always like, we're so obsessed with our self-discovery journey and improving that self-awareness and expanding our consciousness. So I feel like literally every time we ask that question, even if you asked it to us like 3 times a day, we would have a different answer. Like breakfast, lunch, and dinner answers. Like,
yeah, so true.
So yeah, that could be a cute little thing to add on, and then it'll be like this nice little nugget that everyone waits for at the end as well. Yeah,
tick, that works.
And on that note, I feel like I've had so many opportunities come my way this week where I could have hesitated, but it was like I can't actually tell you why I haven't, like why I've nipped that hesitation in the bud. So it's not like I can't actually provide too much value, but maybe me mentioning it, someone else could reflect and be like, oh my God, yeah, I've started doing that too. But I've just had these things like thrown at me this week, and instead of being like, oh, you know, like on the fence and need like coaxing out of it, I'm like, oh yeah, cool. And I just like bypass my analytical mind or whatever that like doubt is. And I'm just like, yeah, fuck it. I'm just going to like start talking and share what I've learnt this week, or jump in the deep end with, you know, my serene session, which is something I'll probably.
Speaking of jumping in the deep end. So I want you to talk about that. I know that we're supposed to be talking about No One's Coming to Save You, which is the title of this episode. Whether or not we actually go there, we'll find out. I guess we'll just play all this by ear. But do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
So Zoe put me onto this chick, and she is, I call her my acupuncturist / therapist / healer / guide.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm talking to people about her, and Zoe and I talk about her probably, you know, once a day. And
that's like,
her name is Serena.
Like we talk about her so much because we're obsessed with her. So
literally all the time.
We'll probably have her on the podcast. We'll drag her out and have her on the podcast. Yeah.
Oh my God, we have to. She's incredible.
Yeah.
So her name is Serena. Her business is called Serene Healing. She's in Tweed, just for a little plug if anyone's interested and in the area and wants to go see her. And she is very in tune with her guides, your guides. For me, she's really been helping me connect with my higher self. And sort of tap into all of my gifts and everything, and just sort of accept that they're there in the first place, because I struggle a lot with, I have all these things. I've just always brushed them off as not real, but she's sort of giving me that inner power to be like, these little spiritual gifts are real. So anyway, she had this amazing session with Zoe the other day, and I'll pass it over to Zoe, but this whole situation just gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, so Serene has just been such a catapult. Catapult's probably a good word for so many people in S&I's little trusted community, and we're always recommending, you know, anyone that feels kind of stuck, be like, all right, go see Serene or go get a Serene healing session. And, I've been working with her maybe for like 6 months now, and up until about the start of this year, I had my own business where I was I struggle to describe it, but it was kind of like mindset development, personal development, mentoring, emotional intelligence work, energy work, etc. And I kind of just like blended all of those little areas that I was interested into one like offering. And for personal reasons, which I suppose I'll share, authentically throughout the episodes, I decided I need to step back from that business for a little bit and closed it down and was just focusing on filling my cup up, putting my life back together sort of thing. And I started working with Serene, and she's literally helped me put my life back together. And, this is a tangent back to the first session I had with her, but I just knew something was wrong. I didn't feel great. Like there wasn't any particular reason why I didn't feel great, but I was like, I don't feel like myself. There's something going on. And I went in, and Serene is like, whoa, holy shit, because of everything you went through last year, which I'm sure I'll share, like I said, throughout this episode and future episodes. She's like, girl, she's like, your spirit has essentially left your body. Like it has left your body. It has left earth. Like it is out. It cannot handle any more grief, any more pain, any more hurt, any more doubt, anything like, and this wasn't things I was putting on myself. It's just, life throws you seasons of just complete and utter shit show vibes, and my sensitive little soul was just like, nah, can't handle this density, and basically checked out. So it was really cool that I kind of like knew something was up, but there is no fucking way I would have been able to like understand that that's what that was, or not be able to work with her and basically draw it back in. It was like we had to like energetically grab a lasso and like grab my spirit and pull it back in and like promise my spirit and my body like it is safe, you're moving through this. And like I had to make a promise to my spirit, like I'm going to look after myself, I'm going to stay devoted, I'm going to look after my body and my mind, body and soul and everything. And it was just like such a freaking ride. So that's where I started when I walked in with Serene, literally in actual like energetic spiritual pieces, like just knowing something's wrong, still quite like positive and like, I can figure this out. But oh my God, I'm so grateful to have had her in my corner to do all of this really kind of deep healing for the last like 6 months. To cut to Tuesday when I went and saw her for my most recent appointment.
The smile on your face just then, you were like, Mary, she was so happy. Zoe just started doing the sweetest smile because what she's about to tell us is just so magical.
You like already had the story, but you're like, oh my God, what? What's going to happen? And yeah, it was just a really beautiful moment. So I walked into my session with Serene on Tuesday, and she was like, all right, you're gonna treat me today. You're gonna heal me today. And basically just put me completely in the deep end and was like, you're ready. You've got all of your gifts there. You've got all of your experience from like your previous business. And we've been working very much, as like Esther mentioned, I've also been working with Serene to tap into my higher self, like one, bring it back into my body and back into earth, but two, connecting with her more and tapping into spiritual gifts I have. And, like it's hard to open yourself up to this stuff. The woo-woo still has a little bit of stigma. So even though we're sitting here on a podcast talking about us, it has taken us a fucking journey to get to this point, to feel comfortable talking about it, or even feel comfortable like being open to our gifts and stuff. So that's what we've been working with Serene with, like amongst a million other things. And yeah, basically she just flipped the script. She's like, no, you're ready. You've got all of these gifts here that we've been working on. You're so aware of them. You've got all of your experience from your business. Like, I'm like sit in my seat right now, like at her desk. And then she swapped over and actually came to me with a genuine problem. And I started pulling some oracle cards and doing a bit of a reading for her. And in the first few minutes, like my analytical mind or whatever it is sort of started getting in the way. And she was like, okay, like kind of come back. Let's recenter. So I was like this little Bambi, like learning to walk, like how do I heal? And yeah. And then I sort of just dropped in again. And as she described it as like channeling, like learning how to channel and kind of get that analytical mind out of the way. And you're just this clear conduit for whatever divine guidance or whatever your higher self or your guides, whatever needed me to say to Serene. So it was really cool, kind of like switching that lane. And I started off pretty rocky, but did a reading for her. And then after like pulling a few more cards, I was like, holy fuck, I'm on the money. Like, this is amazing. I was like, oh my God. But I'm not saying this like giving myself a pat on the back. Like,
you should though. That's fine.
Yeah, thank you. But it's like, it's just the universe. Like, you just need to get out of your own way and trust that you can be that conduit and that connection. So like, I suppose I had to do my part of like stepping out of my comfort zone and actually like jumping into that role of a healer and believing I could, and then moving my analytical mind out of the way. But I can't take credit for what was coming through. It was fully just the universe or Serene's guides or whoever needed to get that message to her. I was the messenger. And that's what I believe healers are in a lot of ways. There's so many modalities and ways to help people and heal people. And we need every single healer on the planet at the moment. Like, we're just this big collective shift happening, and all of us are kind of waking up and wanting to give a shit more about how we're feeling on the inner and outer levels, etc. And it was just incredible to sit into that seat of a healer rather than being healed. And obviously that's like an ongoing journey. And then I thought that was going to be it, because that's where my experience is with my previous business, is more just communicating like the messages and stuff. But I've also got my Reiki qualifications, and then have been spending the last few months really tapping into my own gifts. So more in that energetic, more woo-woo spiritual realm, which is, where the stigma and stuff comes in, and you're like, oh, is that my intuition, or is that just, a coincidence? Like, you're constantly doubting it at the start. And Serene was like, all right, now jump me up on the bed, and we're going to do like a chakra, like scan, clean, healing sort of thing. And I was like, oh, whoa, no, like I haven't done that yet. And then like a little moment of hesitation. But again, as I was mentioning, like I'm just in this phase this week, excuse me, where I'm not like needing that much coaxing. I'm just like, oh, fuck it. Like, let's do it, like.
You're just embracing it all.
Manifesting for so long. Yeah. So we jumped on the bed, and again, like after I kind of just got out of my own way, started channeling what I needed to for her. And she gave me a lot of confirmation that I was giving the right messages. And it was just an absolutely incredible session. Like, for Serene to just move into such an authentic mentorship role through the avenue of becoming vulnerable and becoming the healing,
yeah,
like the person needing the healing. But I just love and respect her 10 million times more. Like that's a true leader, that's a true mentor, that's a true leader. And she just saw in me what I suppose I saw there, but sometimes you just need someone to be like, all right, here's your opportunity. And then I just grabbed it by the balls and did it. And I'm still coming down. Like, it was just the most incredible experience. And it's something I think I was just thinking was still so far away, because I've since like reopened my business, and I've got one offering kind of floating around there, but I'm really taking my time and really just allowing my body and my nervous system to catch up to all these little moments edging out of our comfort zone. And of course, now we've started this podcast too. So there's just so much new energy and edging out of our comfort zone happening at the moment. But I think after kind of like the lull, I suppose, or the ebb that I and Esther herself have experienced over the last like few years or something, nothing is scarier than that. You know what I mean? Like, nothing out of my comfort zone is going to be scarier than what we've had to the fire that we've had to sit in for something to change. And that's what sort of Esther and I are coming out the other side of now. And that's where we've got the energy and the capacity to be like, we have to share this with the world. We have to help other people do this, because anyone who has been through one of those harder chapters in their life, or that ebb, which can last like a few months, a few weeks, a few years even, just knows how hellish it can be. It's so important and valuable. But yeah, I was just giving that comparison of like, if you ever need to be jumping out of your comfort zone, like, be so grateful for the opportunity to even jump out of your comfort zone, because in my personal life lately, I haven't had many, if any, opportunities to do that, even though it's like you kind of want to move out of it, but you're like stuck in the mud, and then like your guides or your intuition's like, not yet, keep waiting, but you're like, oh my God. So
that's such a relatable feeling.
What's that?
That's such a relatable feeling. Like when you your guides are just like, not yet, and you're like waiting. I've had this constant feeling lately of, I was saying it to a friend the other day, excuse me, it kind of just feels like I'm like a greyhound behind a gate or something, like, which is probably not a great metaphor because it's sad for greyhounds. But I feel like I am so physically ready to charge so quickly towards something, and I just don't actually know what.
I know.
You know?
Feeling. It's exhausting, hey?
It's wild. But you just got to trust,
Yeah, and that's why I was so grateful for Serene, actually, because like I said, I've been that same greyhound energy, and I'm like, I'm just ready, let me at it. I don't know what it is, and for her to be like, all right, sit down, you're gonna jump into this hot seat of a healer today, and I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. Like, I was so jazzed. So
what was the feeling afterwards immediately, like apart from like excitement or whatever, like when you were walking out back to your car, what was going through your head?
Just elation, just vitality. Like
Cool.
I was alive. I haven't felt,
so cool.
Yeah.
I love
I
it.
haven't felt alive for a really long time. And I'm not saying this from a place of like, woe me. Like, it's just genuinely
it's the truth
seasons of life. Like, it's I'm not asking for any pity or anything. It's like just genuinely the seasons of life. And we've both just had to really go into the lower vibration one for a little while and just be stuck in the mud. So anything that makes me feel alive or feel excited is like tenfold, you know, because we have the gratitude for it, because we've had the polarity of no excitement and no vitality for so long.
Yeah.
But I could just feel every cell in my body, and I was like, this is what I came here to do. Like,
that is incredible.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing
really
that.
nice. And I suppose it's actually kind of the theme of this episode anyway. But yeah, guys, we're kind of just raw dogging it, and we literally just started to press record and hope that what we say is of some value. So yeah, we're kind of just figuring it out as we go. So we hope you enjoy being a part of this journey. But yeah, this episode we wanted to kind of generally, sort of casually, if the tangents focus on it, focus on victimhood mentality. And the name of the episode is No One Is Coming to Save You, because that is it's not a hard truth, but it's a truth that you eventually experience after you have lived and breathed and tried to embody the victimhood mentality. After a certain amount of time, you just get so sick of your own shit.
You do. That is so true. And that is like, no one's coming to save you is the feeling directly related to victimhood mentality. Like nothing else comes with that as the polar opposite.
Yeah.
Then like, oh my God, no one's coming to fucking save me. Get the fuck up. You need to do something about this yourself. And it's just this sudden overpowering, like, okay, I'm sick of my shit.
Yeah. But it's actually the same. I just realized that it's actually the same belief. So when you're really deep in your victimhood mentality, you're like, no one's coming to save me. And you know what I mean? Yeah. Oh my God. We didn't even realize
Oh my God.
Like, it's from this disempowered place, because you're like, fuck, no one's coming to save me. And then you just stew in your victimhood mentality. But then eventually, we're like, oh my God.
Did other people know this? If everyone else knew this, can you please comment in something in one of our socials so we know? But this feels like a revolutionary moment to me.
It's like pretty common knowledge.
But obviously not to us, but this is amazing.
Yeah, but like, and then we, I suppose, we're coming into this episode focusing on the empowered end of that statement, where you're like, no one's coming to save me. And it's like this, it's like a truth, sometimes a hard truth. If like when you're first starting to feel it, you're like, oh shit, you know, like you can't blame anyone else. But then it just slowly morphs into this like amazing feeling of empowerment. And I think that's so important as women as well, to really tap into that, empowerment piece. Yeah. And then
like
you're
being
like,
your own masculine and your own feminine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow, we just had our own little like moment.
Would that be a download, do you reckon?
Maybe. I don't know, because it was just like, it's actually a huge, like, very obvious example of perception. So it's the same statement, but our perception is literally shifted from disempowerment to empowerment. And even the way, like the tone and the way that
the inflection that you say it.
Yeah, the same sentence in two different ways. Like, oh. So for me, that was a perception lesson. What was that for you? What was that little brain explosion for you?
That was pretty much it. It was like when you said it, I thought of the tone of voice and how such a simple thing can change how you hear it and how you view it. And then obviously, yes, a perspective shift. Because
that's such an exciting realization to be on the edge of, because how many other things are just right there, but because of our perception, particularly being in one lane, it's like just off a little bit. Like, to me, there's so much potential in that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Humans are like, I think one of the most important human experiences is our perspective, and learning to shift it and control it, understand it, identify it, like whether your perspective is good or bad, just be able to be like, what is my perspective of this situation? Is that like the truth no matter what I feel about it, or is it just my reality of this situation? Like, what's the lens of this perspective coming through? Like that kind of thing. Being able to understand someone else's perspective, being able to shift your perspective, being able to say, okay, like, you know, no one's coming to save me. No one's coming to save me. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose that's
just
really a central, one of the many, but a central part of walking your own path. And, you know, that's a huge focus of our podcast is, you know, self-discovery and that spiritual development and, you know, throwing out the rule book and being like, fuck it, I'm going to just take one step in front of the other down this path no one has ever walked down, but my soul is being so totally drawn to. You're really going to have such a good friend in your pocket of like understanding perception.
Yeah.
I thought that would be like a cool analogy, but it wasn't anything. But I was like, I just channel Zoe. Like,
yes. That's so funny. Always do that though. Hello. Sorry, Noah, my son is just walking in and I will edit this out. Good morning. Good morning. Are you just coming for a cuddle? Yes. Am I being loud?
Oh.
It's fine. They were loud last night. I'll be loud this morning. You're kidding. Oh, yeah. Giant little baby. Cute. So.
Essential cuddles.
Hey.
Essential morning cuddles.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, you little.
He's 15 soon and he's still my angel baby.
Yeah.
I just reminded him that he's 15. He was like, "Wait, get up." So, where are we? Explain victimhood mentality.
Yeah, we were kind of, so this episode is about victimhood mentality, but we've just had a little surprise player of perception come on in the hot seat, which is, I suppose like a huge part of getting the fuck out of victimhood mentality. Yeah,
it is actually. It's massive. Being able to look around you and think, okay, it's been huge for us too, like both of our journeys, like especially for work situations. So I've had to work on my perspective to do with my work really thoroughly lately because I traditionally have always been the sort of person who can only do something that she wants to do. Like I don't want to do things that I don't want to do, and I struggle really hard to stay in something as a mani-gen. Like it's just a classic personality trait. I have to just follow my bliss like constantly. But sometimes, you know, you have to stay in a situation to help your future self. Like sometimes you got to put in a little bit of grit to reap the rewards later. And I was running my business, a wedding photography business, for like 5 years. Just shot myself into burnout, which we'll talk about in another episode because burnout situation from that was hectic. And I know a lot of people are going through that at the moment. I was in burnout probably for 1.5 years before I even realized that I was in it. And then I started to have these like really big, I guess, I think I would just say that like the universe, my guides, like whatever was kind of yelling at me, like you need to slow down. And I was just like, I can't stop or I'll die. I ended up making artwork about I can't stop or I'll die. It was the biggest feeling I remember feeling at that time was just this complete inability to slow down. And people would tell me like, you know, you need to like rest, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I was actually I couldn't even absorb what they were saying, even though I knew they were right. I was like, you don't understand. If I stop, I'll die.
Yeah. And it's like kind of like you had wound up so much. Like even now where we're so mindful of like not winding ourselves up or whatever, if I have like a particularly busy day where I'm maybe doing a lot of housework or something, I can literally observe it in the afternoon. So it's only like a few hours of winding up, but observe it in the afternoon. Like I have the opportunity to sit down, read a book or meditate or do something I want to do. But like, it's like I can't stop yet. And I'm still like, you know, shuffling things around the house. And I'm just like, I actually want to stop, but I don't know how to stop yet. So
yes,
that in comparison for like 5 years running the gauntlet or whatever. Yeah. And I was thinking as well when you were saying that, like, have you heard the term? It's like, if you don't listen to the whispers, you'll have to deal with the screams.
No.
And you probably had those.
That's what happened.
And you're like, and now you can probably think back and like, oh, yeah, that was a whisper. Oh, this was a whisper. Or that health condition was a whisper. And then it slowly got louder and louder.
Yes.
So,
got very loud.
Yeah.
Very loud. And I had this like feeling of just like, I had this voice in my head that was constantly like, you need to stop and like look at some flowers, like literally stop and smell the roses. And I just wanted to chase butterflies, lay in a field, like look at trees swaying in the wind. I wanted to just spend more time with my kid and my dog and my family. And all I wanted was just to connect with other humans. And when the big floods happened here in 2022, between like, it happened to so many different areas of Australia. My family lost their entire home and almost everything they own. And lots of my friends were struggling down south, and I lived in Currumbin. So we were in like, that's where the hub of the drop off of all of the goods would be then taken on boats out to Tweed and Lismore and everywhere. So I worked at that community centre for a few days. I worked at my parents' house, just like lugging furniture in and out, just mud. Everyone was saying to me, like, you can't be working this hard and also helping people this much. Like, you need to take some time for yourself, slow down. And I was like, I actually can't explain to you right now how I need to do this so badly. Like, I have to help these people more than you realize. And now I know why. Because at the time I was like, I don't know why. Like, I'm not trying to punish myself right now. I just have to help them. And they were like, pick your battles. Like, help someone else. Like, do something more chill. Like, and I was like, no, I have to do this. And now I realize that pull was the universe shoving me into a really dense communal situation, because I'd been so far removed from a community vibe for such a long time, just working in a business by myself. And, you know, just it felt very isolating, I think. And obviously with internet culture, like, we do most things online, and I have friends, but I didn't really have a lot of time to see them because I was always working weddings on weekends and my hours were very different from everyone else's. So I was shoved into this like really dense community situation where all I could feel was humans helping one another. And even though there was like a tragedy in the air and it was very heavy and all of our hearts were like weighed down, there was also this sense of like, I got goosebumps thinking about it. I will never forget being like those few days that I worked like just with other people in a way where it's like other people's lives are at risk and we need to help them, and no one else is doing anything. It's up to us. Like, no one was coming to save them at the time. The government wasn't doing anything. The army wasn't doing anything yet. The community did it. And that to me was like the most amazing thing in the entire world. That planted a seed that I will never let go of just like, we need to help each other. We need to be there for each other. We need to connect, and we need to see each other face to face. Humans are so powerful when they're near each other. So I guess like that feeling was just something I held on to, and I was like, you know what, I want more of that. And then I lost my nan and my dog in the same week, not long after that, a couple of months later. No, my dog was my soulmate and my nan was my poppy's soulmate, and I'm close with my poppy and my nan, and it was just this really hard time for all of us. And I kind of like how you said that your soul had left your body. Like, I felt like that entire period of my life I could only see through this really foggy like lens. It was like I had binoculars looking at my life from a different perspective, and they had mold on them or something. Like, I was looking, everything was dark. I feel like I was just like squinting and trying to see through my eyelashes. Like, it's so crazy how little light there was in my life at that time. And things just kept getting worse. I kept being like, oh, this is rock bottom. And then nope, the rug got pulled again. Then I was like, this is rock bottom. And then the rug got pulled again. And I was like, it can't get worse than this. Then I was like, I'm going to stop saying that. And then
challenging the universe.
Yeah. And then when you were saying it, I was like, Sophie, don't say that. It'll keep happening. So then I decided to quit my business, because I was like, I am ignoring this intense pull towards being with my friends, my family, my community, and just working super hard. And I was like, oh my God, does that mean I'm a failure? I felt like a failure. Like, my perspective was that I was failing and I had to shut it down because I couldn't handle it. It wasn't that I'd made such a successful business that I had so much work, more than I could handle. And I kept powering through, even though I had the pandemic, you know, sort of like making it the most challenging thing ever. I had like heaps of delays in edits because I was working more than I could handle and didn't, oh my God, if anyone wants to know about that, we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah. But even just like, I suppose you ignoring that fact that you had evolved as a person and the business wasn't a passion of yours anymore.
Yes, exactly. That too. Because I'd never held on to anything like that before. Like we were saying yesterday in our first episode, I had never put that long or that much effort into something. So that was the first time I had to experience like dedicating my life to something and then walking away from it because I decided it wasn't for me anymore. So it was all a really big like shift that I had to go through in the perspective department there. And then I realized like, no, this is perfect. Like, this is exactly what I need. Amazing. Like, got to get out of the business. I'm going to get a job. So then I got a job and it was what I needed at the time, just as a videographer in a marketing department. And it was very strange having a job again, but I was like, I just need to get paid to exist so I can just reset my entire life, like recalibrate, fall apart. I just let myself go, let my identity fucking fall off my body. I didn't want to see anyone. I walked away from friend groups. I spent so much time alone. I was so deeply in a cocoon that I just let myself be. And I was like, this is where we are now. And I was like, I guess I'll come out eventually because I've been through enough to know that I would. I just let it happen. And I'm coming out now slowly, just like, you know, busting out. The wings are starting. Yeah. But then when I was I guess I spent too long in that job because it started to feel like a very toxic environment. I realized that they didn't actually prioritize your well-being. Like, and that's really what I needed. I was like, no, I need my well-being to be prioritized. And I was being pushed to work as hard as I did on my business. And I was like, this isn't even my business. Like, I'm not going to work that hard for someone else's pocket. No fucking way. It's just not in me to do that shit, eh?
Yeah.
I was like, if I'm going to give all that precious creative energy, it's going to be for myself or for a good cause. So then I got this job with my friend. So she offered me a job being the marketing coordinator for her mineral makeup brand. And I have been loving it, but I've also been like constantly pulled towards wanting to do something for my higher self or the greater good of humanity, or like creative pursuits or something that can help myself and others heal. Like, I have this like completely separate agenda with my life that I want to run towards. And that's like greyhound out of a gate feeling, where I just want to launch at something that's going to be so amazing that isn't just working for someone else. But this is where the perspective thing comes back around. I have also felt so balanced lately. I have felt so grateful. I have felt like I've been able to go out I get up in the morning and I drink my turmeric tea, I read a book, I get dressed and I go to the gym and the sun's like not even up yet. And I come back and I hang out with my kid. He goes to school or whatever. And then I can go on like a hot girl walk around Burleigh, or I can see like one of my girlfriends. And then I can come back and start work. Like, are you kidding? And then throughout the workday, I get everything done so quickly. So I've got little pockets of time to be able to like work on little creative pursuits, or I'll do some of the painting on a lunch break or whatever. I'll sit outside because I live by the water. And I'm able to actually embrace the incredible surroundings around me while getting paid to exist. So I'm finally getting exactly what I wanted when I initially got that job. I asked the universe for this and I was given this exact opportunity. And at the time, I was whinging, wanting to do something else. Like, I wasn't being present in this, realizing what I had in my hands. I was like, I just want to go and like change the world already. Like, but I don't even know how. But like, let me out to do it. I'll figure it out. What a silly bitch. So like, I'll get there. It'll come, you know? Yeah. And I just need a minute to like, you know, get my finances sorted. I'm trying to buy a home. I'm like, I have these goals that I'm working towards. And this job is allowing me the life that I want. It's allowing me to make this podcast with Zoe. And it's allowing me to have work-life balance. And I am so grateful. My perspective has shifted because I've been, you know, meditating on it. I've been hanging out with friends who are really grateful to have their jobs. I've been just putting myself in the mindset of like, this is what you wanted and the universe delivered. How dare you not say thank you?
Yeah.
How fucking dare you? And I was like, you know what? Yes, I wanted this. So here we are. And thank you so much, universe. I appreciate the opportunity. And my perspective shifted.
Yeah, exactly. That's the perspective shift, because like through the moments of all of that kind of falling apart and all of that over the last few years, of course you had your victimhood mentality, and which I think is a valuable part. Like, I just want to be really clear that like throughout this episode, we're not sitting here telling you to just bash yourself because you're feeling like a victim. It's, to me, I think victimhood mentality is not something you can eradicate, because life will throw you curveballs that will trigger parts of you, inner child stuff, unhealed stuff that you just didn't even fucking know was there. So to have the expectation that you got to walk around and always be so fucking grateful for the lessons, like, it doesn't happen like that. I just wanted this episode to be helping us create a more loving, compassionate awareness of ourselves and almost be able to hold yourself through the victimhood mentality, because
sorry, you said something that just like rang so true for my entire year. All I've been saying is hold your grief in your hands with you, hold your inner child in your hands with you, hold your pain in your hands with you. I painted it in the background of so many paintings, and you just said like, sit with it, hold it, and I was like, sorry, go on.
I think like, you know, I've had a similar rough trot to Esther in, you know, dealing with grief, shutting down a business, and like the whole, when you said the failure thing about your business, I was like, mate, like I could wake up tomorrow and still have this huge praying of failure, like I've failed. But I know that closing down my business was the smartest thing ever, and such a brave thing to do in a community,
it is,
in a society where it's always like momentum, push, go forward. For me to be like, to dig my heels and be like, no, I am not okay, experiencing different versions of burnout, but similar to Esther, just of like, how am I even fucking showing up in the world? Because I am so miserable right now. This is not living. This is not existing even. It is just fucking pure struggle. And so, yeah, when you said the whole failure piece with your business, I was like, oh, man, like that's still like a fresh wound for me sometimes. But it's throughout this whole time, of course, Esther and I have had victimhood moments, and I'll message her and she'll message me. But we don't sit there and, you know, get angry at the other one like, oh, my God, Esther, like, don't be a victim. It's like, you're like, oh, baby, fuck, that sucks. Like, it really, really sucks. And I think we just wanted to come on here and be an advocate almost for victimhood mentality, but just victimhood mentality is just the moment, the little pocket of time where you just need to feel the feels. Just feel hard done by, feel upset, feel disappointed, feel heartbroken, feel the grief. Just feel it. Don't intellectualize it. And because the other end of victimhood mentality is bypassing it and trying to be strong and tough all the time. Like, fuck that noise as well. We're just trying to promote being that happy little balance in the middle of like the seesaw. Find that balance in the middle where it's like, okay, I've had 50 million curveballs thrown at me in the last half an hour. Like, sometimes that's what it felt like for sure. But I'm just going to need to feel the feels. And then every single time we would just create a loving space, whether that was ourselves or I would have to lean on Esther or vice versa, just create that safe space and that loving compassion, almost that permission slip for each other to be like, just feel a little bit shit, sleep on it, and then we'll come up with an action plan tomorrow. So it's,
do you know like, sorry.
Yeah.
You can go. You know what I identify the victimhood mentality with is your inner child like screaming out about something that hurt a long time ago.
Let him have tantrum.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can feel it too. When you're feeling that victimhood mentality, you can feel an inner tantrum. It feels for me like my stomach has a little fucking kid in it trying to kick and scream about something. Yeah. It feels like if I wasn't a grown adult, I would actually be like actually whinge into a child's mentality. And I like to see the victimhood mentality coming in as a flag for like, okay, this is some work you need to do on this thing. So it's not just like, oh, all right, woe is me or whatever. It's like, okay, woe is me. And like you said, feel that, sit in the feeling, process what hurt you a long time ago and look at that and be like, okay, this is a perfect opportunity to identify an issue that is under the surface that has control over my life in one way or another and then work on it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think we were voice messaging about this last week. We were like, how funny is it that like a lot of adult related things, like maybe an unexpected bill or something comes in, that's like an adult grown up thing. But we were like, it almost triggers our inner child.
So triggering.
You know?
I fucking hate it.
Yeah, it sucks. So on top of Esther and I having like a lot of emotional turmoil and stuff, like just random like general life adult stuff has been thrown at us as well. Just, you know, like into the little pot, into the little mix. And yeah, it's definitely like the victimhood mentality moment, and that moment, that need to feel, is definitely like the inner child throwing their toys out the cot. But moving from a place of victimhood mentality into empowerment is a process of reparenting yourself.
Yes.
You know, learning like, okay, now my little inner child toddler has had a tantrum. How do I make her feel safe and provided for? How do I, you know, like nip this in the bud, like you said, work on that trigger or work on that unhealed part of yourself, like from, you know, forever ago. And that's all victimhood mentality is like this compassion piece of like, okay, I just need to feel the feels for a little bit. But through that loving compassion of like, I'm saying loving compassion in the way that like, don't beat yourself up for feeling like a victim. Just be a fucking victim for a little bit. And then step into that empowerment role, which is basically just a process of reparenting yourself and being like, okay, awesome. I'm going to put my big girl pants on. I'm going to get my shit sorted. Like, you know, and
then you feel so good afterwards.
Oh, exactly. It's like, how do I say it? Like empowerment and confidence and stuff. It comes from action. You have to take the action first, and then you feel empowered, and then you feel confident, or then you feel strong in what you're doing, you know? So yeah, but I think people get stuck in victimhood mentality forever. And I'm not saying this to like bag people. They don't even realize they're in the victimhood mentality.
Totally. And you could hear it a mile away. Oh my God. Remember that? So I was about to say, remember that time, and then forgot that people were even listening to this. So I was voice messaging Zoe. We were in the middle of like probably a day-long voice message conversation.
Yeah, marathon.
And I was sitting outside Noodle Box waiting for my order. And this guy comes walking up to me, and he wasn't homeless, but he was obviously just like strapped for cash or whatever. And he was like, hey, have you got like $3? And I was like, oh, I'm literally only holding my phone. Like my phone and my keys, that was it. I was like, I've got no wallet, no cash, no nothing. And he was like, oh no, he's like, just, you know, $3 for like a local. I've lived here my whole life. And he was like, I don't have any, you know, I was like, sorry, but I was like, I'll buy you dinner. I was like, do you want me to? And he's like, no, I just need some bread for. He's like, you know, we've lived here forever, and it's settling day tomorrow, and if Mrs. at home is going to make us some toasted sandwiches. I want to get $3 bread. And I was like, I'll get you guys dinner. And he was like, no, it's all right. And he walks off, and I was like, okay. So and I messaged Zoe, and I was like, get a load of this. And I was like, all I could see was just victimhood mentality not being addressed, and he actually didn't want to leave it. He was super comfortable being in that mentality that when I was like, here's better than bread, do you want some Noodle Box? He was like, nah, I just want the bread. And at first the initial thought I had was like, maybe it feels like from a pride perspective, like that feels too hard to accept. Then I was like, no, he just came up to me asking me for money. So I was like, it's not a pride thing. So I was like, no, I think that was just a straight up victimhood mentality, never wanted to leave it in the first place.
Yeah.
Wanted to continue being a victim, and he just went on his way. And I was like, okay, no worries. Because I'm like so happy to help people who need help. Like I was like, fucking oath, let me get you a meal.
Literally offered him the solution on the silver platter, and he was like, but like we're not bagging it.
I feel very strongly about this.
Like observing, but we're just observing that like he was actually so unaware that he was in his victimhood mentality. He had no idea that there was an obvious solution right in front of him, but he was like on repeat, like a broken record. Like, no, I've lived here my whole life. I need $3. And you're like offering maybe $40 worth of Noodle Box dinner, like 2 meals, you know? And so we're not judging. We're just pointing out that you can probably observe people in your life that are like, so in that mentality. And
I would also like to say before you go on, I think this is really important to note that it's not his fault. I don't think that he is in that mentality. That's a systemic problem, and that needs to be addressed on a really deep level. And this is the kind of thing I can't wait to fucking change the world with, to fix the mentality and the issues and all of those things at large to help people. And but just on your everyday person who isn't like a complete victim to the fucking society and the way the world works and everything, is kind of more where it's like we have control over this. Like he has control over that too. Everyone does, but I also completely empathize with what has driven him to be in that situation for that long. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
But basically No, yeah, totally. Like we're not bagging him as an individual. Like there is a big systemic collective issue going on, but Esther and I, like you can get so overwhelmed thinking about that, and we will change the world, but we have noticed the value in coming back and rejigging our experience, like one person at a time, like Esther and I, and hopefully you guys listening just inspire you to observe those next moments that you're in victimhood mentality and be like, okay, this is just a temporary experience as well. Like just giving yourself that permission to feel that, knowing that it's temporary, and being like, I will put my big curl pants on and keep going.
Do you remember the time when you got to that point? Like, do you remember an experience when you were like, oh, and then you could actually direct your process through your victimhood mentality? Like, do you have like a pivotal memory of like, I remembered when all of that clicked?
Oh, true. I don't know, like not like a defining moment, but I think for me, depending what the trigger is, or, you know, how far down I feel like I've been kicked or whatever, the victimhood mentality will last different amounts of time. So sometimes it's just like a 5-minute little bitch, and other times it's like I've literally got to sleep it off sort of thing.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? So I think we just collectively got an idea of like, okay, I'm just going to feel like this for a little bit, but Esther and I just ever fucking positive people. Like,
and ever learning. We're both obsessed with learning about ourselves, each other human beings, how to be better people, like oh my God, everything.
And I feel like we're very humble students of life. Like we're not sitting here like, guys, we've figured it out. We're just like, this is, you know, some idea of what we've got so far. And as we mentioned in the first episode, we want this to be like an interactive collective conversation, you know, like whether that's like bringing in questions or Q&As, or, you know, even like in-person events eventually as well. Like we're not trying to say that we know what we're doing. We're very humble students of life. We're just absolutely obsessed with understanding how we interact with life, like, and understanding our own consciousness, which is just another way of saying how we're interacting with life. Like, so we just wanted to share what we're kind of figuring out. And
can I share a little anecdote?
About you? Yeah.
So this is a victimhood mentality thing, and this is like where I kind of I was just so proud of myself actually after this. And it was one of those times where it took me like a bit of time to process it. It wasn't a 5-minute, and I think it was like it took me about 12 hours of this victimhood situation. Yeah. So I went to a gym class in Broadbeach, and I love being around people. Like I love the energy of a room full of people all trying to achieve the same thing. I think that's really, really cool, and you can feel it. It's like a visceral situation. And when there's like, I guess, a fork in that, or like something in it that's like dividing it or being a stark and opposite direction, like you can really, really feel it a mile away. So we're in this gym and we had to get into groups of 6. I had 2 girlfriends with me, so it was 3 of us, and there was like another 3-pack of girls, 3-pack behind us, and they were like, hey, do you need 3 more? We're like, yes. So the 6 of us were all on a team. And one of the girls was just a horrible person, but not a bad person. She was being horrible. She's not a horrible human.
Hurt people, basically.
Exactly, yeah. So she was so mean today. But that's how I felt. So basically I have bad eyesight. It's a dark room. I'm not wearing my glasses. There's a screen with the order of like the exercises we have to do. And it's like a cycle. So you have to do a thing for however long, and then you do the next thing. Then you do the next thing, and we're all rotating. And I couldn't see. So I was like, quickly with someone, like one of the people, I was like, which one am I on now? Like, and they were like, you're on blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I did the next thing. And then she comes over, she's like, you're not on that, you're on that. And I was like, oh, okay. And then like all of us were suddenly kind of thrown out. Like the direction was like, someone's working this way, someone's working this way. And I was like, fucking my bad. Oh my God. And so my ADHD was being so triggered. Like my inner child who had ADHD forever, who couldn't ever like fucking pay attention or remember what the next thing was in those situations are terrifying to me, because that exact thing has happened to me so often, where someone's been like, oh my God, just fucking figure it out. Like, do this thing. You're here, you're there. Like it was Anyway, so she was yelling at me for like the first 5 minutes, basically, like literally like frustrated, frowning, pointing, like throwing her arms off in different directions. And I was like, oh my God. And she was being quite mean to the other girls as well. But I was the one that was like most triggered by it because of the childhood stuff. And I actually was trying not to cry. And like when you're doing that hard of a workout and you have to like keep it up for the team, I was like, it's so hard to do a workout and also try not to cry. Like you're like, I just wanted to be like in a ball in a corner crying and sobbing and have someone hold me and be like, you'll be okay. And I was like, she's really mean to me. And on the outside, I was like lifting weights and squatting and like the music's like doof, doof, doof. I was like,
so much coming in.
Hellish. I will never go back there, by the way. So anyway, so that's all happening. And then like there was a point where I'm on the rower and she was in the rest zone and she was the person right in front of me. So she was sitting down against the wall, like, and I was facing her rowing. We were quite close to each other. And I could see all over her face that she was angry. She was beating herself up. She felt anxious. She felt like she wasn't good enough. I could just see all of her, I could see her traumas like unraveling in front of me, basically. I could see her parents. I could just tell all of a sudden that her parents were super fucking hard on her and never gave her enough like encouragement. And initially before, like as these like downloads of her life were coming in, I was like also had these like fucking tentacles coming out of me, like reaching towards her as if to be like, fuck you, like, you know, how dare you? And my inner child was just like, yeah, send her out. And then my higher self was like, no, reel them back in and or turn them into fucking love hearts, you bitch. And I was like, okay, fine. So I reeled my tentacles back in. And then I just started sending out like love waves and like nice energy, because that was when the downloads really started coming in, like her parents treating her a certain way and like how she was feeling and why she was being like that to me and how she was just embodying someone who had treated her that way through her life.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, she just needs a fucking hug. Like I didn't go and hug her, so like don't get too excited. I honestly wish I did, but she wouldn't have accepted it. She would have actually probably pushed me over. So I kept my physical distance, but I was emotionally sending her hugs. And then I just still couldn't get over it. Like I got home and I was like Haley and I went for a hot girl walk afterwards, and Haley was like, you know, really weird. It's like she was being so mean. And I was like, it's nice to know that other people felt her meanness and it wasn't just me. Like they could all feel it because the energy of the room was so fun and amazing everywhere else. But right in our group, it was just this horrendous, like yucky vibe. And so that was gratifying that they also had the experience of her. And I was like, cool. But then I just like couldn't shake it. And I went home and I was like, I'm just so sad. And I felt so flat and so heavy. Like it took all of my energy. And I could just feel my inner child whinging at me. Just like that lady was so mean, and everyone talks to us this way. I sound like Gollum. Everyone talks to us. But my higher self, my current self, and my inner child are all living in me at once, and I honestly identify with them at different times. And, so I could just feel my inner child being like, eh. And then I was like, I'm going to just do some art because art helps me process my emotion. And so I got this big canvas and I wrote a letter to her on the canvas, just in a Posca pen. I wrote how she made me feel, and I wrote that it was like she's not allowed to put her projections onto me like that. I don't accept them, but I understand why she did. And I was like, thank you as well, because you gave me the gift of realizing that this is a flag that I need to work on, and I need to identify that like this is something that's in me and she just triggered it. And so I was like thanking her for that. And then I did this like art all over it and everything. And then I journaled about it. And then I had this like aha moment after processing all of that, where I realized that this is another time where the universe gave me a gift that I'd asked for and that I wasn't being grateful. So I realized that at the start of this year, I was like, I want to do all of my shadow work. I want to be helped. I want help to see the areas that need the work. I want to run headfirst into them, but I don't know where they all are. And I was like, I'm so aware of the fact that I don't know all of my shadow areas. I don't know where all my traumas are. I don't actually know where everything is. And I need help to see it. And the universe just dropped this super mean lady into my lap to be mean to me, to trigger my inner child in that specific situation so that I could then work on that and hold myself in that moment and tell myself that it's okay and that's actually not a reflection of who I am as a person and everything. And then I was suddenly so grateful for the situation. I was like, thank you, super mean chick. Like, that is the nicest thing. And I felt grateful that the universe, like, again, just listened to something that I super wanted and was like, yes, like, here you go. This is the thing we will help you work on. And that was just a moment where I got to process, I think, like the start, middle, and end of a trauma through someone else triggering it, going into victimhood mentality and then working my way out of it and realizing the gift that it actually was. So that's the first time I realized all of that.
And like listening to that story, it's like, sorry guys, I've got a bit of a throat thing. So apologies. But yeah, like you felt the initial trigger, you felt like the victim at the start, and then because there's like two sides to the coin with victimhood mentality, you feel hard done by, and then you also feel negative emotions towards that person that has triggered that. But then just to observe you like softening in that, and I was thinking about it, I was like, do you reckon like victimhood mentality and gratitude can't really exist in the same moment? Like when you start experiencing gratitude for the trigger, for the person, and then sending them love and compassion, that's maybe like that good indication. You're like, okay, cool, I'm letting go of the victimhood mentality.
Yes.
Because to be grateful, like you said, like you have so much awareness of like, okay, I wanted to deal with a lot of my triggers and trauma this year, and then people think it's just going to come as a silver platter. You know, it's like, no, you need like the trigger to move through the trauma, you know what I mean? So the fact that you can like acknowledge, oh, I've actually manifested this, and I'm so grateful to the universe and to her and to me, etc. So
I love that the victimhood and the gratitude can't exist together, and one sort of means the end, like the end of the other.
Yeah. So I suppose like as we're wrapping up this podcast, like that would be little indications for yourself in your own victimhood journeys, because you are going to be triggered again, whether it's today, in a week's time, whatever. Like we're all going to get triggered at some point, and that victimhood mentality is going to come up. It's literally just part of being an animal, like part of survival mode is that victimhood mentality. But then I suppose we invite you guys to be self-aware of how you can move out of that victimhood mentality. And I suppose a few of those indicators would be gratitude for it or for the person, sending that person or the situation love, like being like, oh, wow, I'm so glad my car broke down there because that meant that I could do X, Y, and Z. You know, like if you can get to the point of understanding and feeling gratitude for that trigger, I think that's a sign you're coming out of the victimhood mentality.
Yeah, hard agree.
If you're finding a solution to the victimhood mentality too, like actually starting to get proactive with that, that would be an indication that you've felt the feels and you've put your big girl pants back on and you're like, okay, well, how do I get out of this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of experiences like this lately, I think. Like you've had a lot of triggers coming up to do with your car journey and the license and everything. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think that was like in the last few weeks or months, I've just been having all of these crazy, gnarly curveballs thrown at me, and just like boring logistical things. Like I live in Northern Rivers, just on the Queensland-New South Wales border, but I lived on the Gold Coast, and that's where I met Esther. So now we live about 45 to an hour away, depending on traffic. And so I had my car in a Queensland driver's license and then driving around New South Wales, which everyone does around here. Got pulled over the other day and got a $1,200 fine for doing that. And it was just like really, really hard to like make sense of it. You know what I mean? Like if I had been speeding or drink driving, I'd be like, yeah, shit, like I fucked up. Like that fair call. Like I've got to, pay my fine and pay my dues. But this is just like literally paperwork. Like I wasn't endangering myself or anyone by being in the car. It was just like, oh, your paperwork is in this pigeonhole and we need it to be in that one. So we're going to give you a $1,200 fine so you learn your lesson about where to put your fucking paperwork. Like that's the way my brain was like, making sense of it. And I was like, I can't let this go. It just feels really fucking unfair. Like fair enough if I had been speeding, I would have been like, yeah, cool. Like I fucked up real bad. But I'm like, was literally just driving home from coffee with a friend, like not hurting anybody or anything. And sometimes life has to throw you those things that like don't make sense straight away, but it has triggered so much victimhood mentality in me. And
you were saying that it makes you feel like such a number in a system. You're like, I'm just not a human in their eyes.
Exactly. And like, I think that's the double-edged sword as well. Like, so I've moved through that victimhood mentality now, and I'm really grateful. So this is like amongst other things. I'm not going to literally break down every single little thing that's gone on, but it literally felt like I would take one step forward and then I'd open that door and there'd be like a clusterfuck of 5 other things and like a side turn and then a back. It's like I was playing snakes and ladders, but like I was just going down the fucking the whole time. I'm like back to zero. I'm like, oh my God. Like, so it's just like, oh man, it was pretty gnarly. And it was just like so many triggers on my victimhood mentality, like bam, 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 like so consistently. Like I didn't even have a chance to like process the whole first one and then another one come and it'll keep piling on. So I'm not going to tell you every single trigger that happened, but I've definitely got to the point now where I've let go of the stress of everything, because now that I have to, you know, get registered in New South Wales, I have to book in for all of these appointments as well to get my car roadworthy. Like my car is roadworthy, but you know, there's little things like, oh, your seatbelt doesn't retract, you know, fast enough sort of thing. And you just like all of these little minuscule things. But I just wanted to mention that because I think all of these tiny little triggers about things that are happening in this current society, in this current system, like Esther said, you're just a fucking number. You're not like a person who's like, you know, trying to keep on keeping on and whatever. There's a double-edged sword to this self-discovery path and walking your own path. And I think these constant triggers showed me how much frustration and anger and jadedness, I don't know if that's a word, but when you're jadedness towards society, and just showed me how much that's still holding me back. Like it's not about, oh, I'm walking my own path and everyone else is wrong and society sucks right now. But like that's kind of like this underlying like anger that I was holding on to, because we walk around and we see like the hustle culture and women getting objectified and this and that and just all of this shit stuff that's eventually going to dissipate. And like that's why we're doing this work and you know, so committed to creating this new way of life. But I'm not going to get there by completely negging on the current one. You know what I mean? Like I still need to be a human being in this system right now. And it was just so hard for me. Like, because I'm an Aquarius too, and I mentioned that in the first episode. So we're like stubbornly independent, like to a point where it does not, you know, provide any value to me sometimes. And it's just was like triggering this, like, I don't want to be your obedient little girl, like sort of thing. So it was like so many weird triggers. And then as well, I was only feeling triggered and stressed about the financial things and the curveballs because I didn't feel confident and capable of supporting myself in that way. So it came up to the surface because I'm like getting these curveballs and I'm sorting my car for this and that. And I also didn't have my license for 2 weeks because of all of that stuff. Like it wasn't like I lost my license for dangerous driving. They just voided it until I got all of this paperwork sorted. And I was like constantly doing phone calls and emails. And it was just so much adulting and grown-upness. But it showed me that I was lacking a lot of confidence in my ability to pick myself back up in just like those little mundane things, you know? So I've had a lot of weird triggers with victimhood mentality lately as well, but I've reached that point where I'm grateful for those lessons and those triggers because I'm like, okay, cool. It's shown me that I was holding on to a lot of anger and jadedness towards society, and that's only going to disadvantage me. You know, like where there's enough angry people in the world right now, it's like I need to focus on my journey and then let go of the other thing. And then it also brought up to the surface too, realizing like a lack of confidence that I had around my ability to support myself in this society. So yeah.
That was like so much that you moved through at once too. Like I know that you were able to just sort of summarize that really quickly, but I want everyone to know like how very much Zoe has been going through with all of this stuff, and it truly has just been one thing after the other.
Yeah.
And in classic Zoe fashion, she's also processed it so fast, and she's at this point already where she's able to look at it from a higher perspective and appreciate what she learned.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like maybe we should wrap that up. Wrap it up. Yeah. We'll let all of that land, but we hope that you learnt something again. So,
I was thinking, can I just say, because it'd be cute for everyone to hear this as well, but when you were talking, I was picturing like, I just had this like thought go through my head of like, oh my gosh, she was made to be a podcaster. Like, you speak so well. Like, your throat chakra maybe is just super clear. I don't know. Like, you speak so well, and it's actually so incredible listening to you, and the way that you communicate is just beautiful. And then I was like, wow, I'm so grateful to be doing this podcast with Zoe. And then I just had this like little visual where I like left my body, zoomed through the screen into your area, put my arms under your arms and sunk in and held you, and just sort of like sunk into your chest as if like I was there holding you, as if like in a, like it was comforting for me to imagine that or whatever. And I think that was just my soul being really grateful to do this with you, I guess, in a way of like, I'm so happy. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Well, yeah, episode 2 done. What a fun, exciting journey. I hope you guys are getting just as much out of this as we are, because it is so much fun and exciting and expansive for us. So, yeah. And as we've mentioned, we've had like a really interesting, you know, few months, few years. So anything that makes us feel excited and alive and passionate about, we're just fucking over the moon about. So we hope you guys are picking up on that good juju and learning something along the way.
Yes, that's super important. Also, don't forget, if you want to add something, or if you have a question, or if you're struggling with something, or you just want to say, hey, record a voice note on your phone and your voice memos, and then email it through to us at visionandalchemy@gmail.com, and you can find all of our socials in the show notes.
Yay. All right. We love you guys.
Love you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Vision and Alchemy. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love you to share it with a friend. Your support means everything to us. If you'd like to subscribe to our journey, follow us at Vision and Alchemy on socials, and we'll see you next time.